Welcome to Equip, Build, and Mature. On this Saturday, I want to do an overview of one of the books of the Bible, and today we're going to be doing 2 John. So the first question we ask is, who wrote the document? Well, John did not identify himself by name in this letter, but he used the term elder to describe himself. We see this in chapter 1, verse 1. Now, there are some who have wondered if there was a different author of this letter named John the Elder. Well, the letter of 3 John also uses this same description. So the question is, did John the Apostle use a different description of himself? The earliest church tradition from the 2nd century on was united in confirming that this letter and its companion 3 John were written by the apostle, not by a mysterious and unknown elder. In fact, an apostle using the term elder to describe himself was not at all unusual. The apostle Peter did the same thing in his first letter in 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 1. So the next question is, what time in history did this take place? Well, John did not share very many details in the short letter of 2 John. He discussed nothing about the circumstances in the letter that would cause an exegete to think that it did not go to the same congregation of Jesus that received 1 John. Now, the apostle wrote the letter, it says, to the chosen lady and her children. So this unexplained phrase has led to a lot of discussion. We see this in 2 John chapter 1, verse 1. So the phrase to the chosen lady and her children, it either refers to an actual woman or it's used as a metaphor for a congregation of Jesus' church. Now, it does not really matter. It could be a physical family meeting in their home, or it could be written to a larger group of united covenant disciples of Jesus. But either way, the application of the letter really doesn't change at all. The theme of this letter is similar to that of 1 John. I think 2 John was probably written before 78 AD. That's just my opinion, when I believe the Revelation was written from the island of Patmos. So why is 2 John so important? Well, 2 John clarifies what our position should be about those that are enemies of the truth. 1 John focuses on our fellowship with God. 2 John focuses on protecting our fellowship with God from those who are false teachers. Now, the Apostle John warned his readers to not invite false teachers into their house or even to greet them on the road. We see this in 2 John chapter 1 in verse 10. Now, those types of actions show that the disciple of Jesus is supporting what the evildoer is doing. So John was dedicated to keep Jesus' disciples pure from the stain of false teaching and rebelling against God and his authority. So the next question is, well, what's the big idea? What's the emphasis? Well, John began his second letter proclaiming his love for the elect lady and her children. He shared this love with those who know the truth, 2 John 1:1. So from the reports that John had received, he understood that those disciples of Jesus were following Jesus' teachings. He summarized this way of life with the phrase, to love one another, chapter 1, verse 5. Now, this phrase clearly referred to Jesus' great commands. Love God and love your neighbor. We see that in Matthew chapter 22, verses 36 to 40, and in John chapter 13, verse 34. So, those who walk in the truth should be people who love others. But they should also be cautious about who they love. Deceivers and false teachers had slipped into Jesus' church. Those people taught false things about the person of Jesus. They taught that Jesus was not really a man, but only seemed to be one. This early rebellious false teaching was called Docetism. It needed the strongest possible response from the Apostle John. So the apostle warned Jesus' true disciples to stay away from false teachers. John did not encourage them to simply love them. He encouraged them to love others within the limits that truth allows. So the next question, how does this letter and the principles and concepts in it apply to you and me in the 21st century? Loving each other was part of John's strong encouragement to Jesus' disciples in 2 John. But John did not leave love undefined. He described love as walking according to Jesus' commands, as 2 John chapter 1, verse 6. This echoes the teaching of Jesus in the Gospel of John. Jesus told his followers in John chapter 14, verse 15, "If you love me, you will keep my commands." We are liars if we say we love God, but do not obey his word. If we do not obey, then the reality is we do not love. Because without obeying, we don't know how to love the way God would have us love. We often think our obedience to God only affects us, ourselves. But that is simply not true. Our obedient or disobedient actions have ripple effects far beyond our own limited vision or our situation. Think about your own life. Are there ways that your obedience or your disobedience might impact those in your immediate circle of relationships? 2 John reminds us of the dangers of falling away from the truth. John also reminds us that it is very important to make obedience a priority in our lives. Our obedience benefits us, and our obedience benefits those that are most important to us. Guys, hope you have a great Saturday. May God continue to bless us as we listen to what his word says and obey it like he asks us to. You guys take care.